saw why soon.
Yes, I saw why. Prayers for that, Pam.
No, thanks.
I wanted to start out with just something fun. I think a couple weeks ago, Mike, I said something about the song, the old hymn that was, I'd rather have Jesus than silver or gold. I'd rather be his than have riches untold. I'd rather have Jesus than houses or land. I'd rather be led by his nails pierced hands. And the one thing that came to mind to me after all of this is, it seems to me I sing this hymn differently than I did when I was 20. When I was 20, I would probably sing it, I'd rather have Jesus and silver or gold. I'd rather have Jesus and riches untold, and to be the king of a vast domain. I'd rather have Jesus in everything. And the verses go on and do the same thing. But when you're 20 and you don't have anything, really, the way this, I know what we sang, but I know how my head reworded it. I mean, it's sort of like when you ask two people that are getting married, for better or worse, and the guy's thinking, okay, better, richer or poorer, richer, sickness and health. Oh, health, yeah, I choose health. Okay, so better, richer health, that'll be fine. Thank you, Pastor. So I think when in my 20s, when I sing this hymn, I don't put ors in here, I put ands in here. But then when you get to be 70, and I have houses, and I have kids, and I have land, as you've seen, and now you're trying to be a good person and get into heaven, then you probably start singing it. I'd rather have Jesus than silver or gold. I already got it. And so yeah, I think we'll vote for Jesus now, because Vince died, and my doctor seems to think he's not sure if he needs to fix my hip. Maybe, I need to worry about this. And I think you see it differently, and I think you hear it differently. And it's humorous in one sense, but it's also the maturing of your faith. It's the maturing of, well, yeah, I want richer, better health. Not really understanding that there is ands and ors in your marriage vows. And, you don't get to choose richer or poorer. You just get to acknowledge that you're going to be somewhere in there. And I think the same thing happens with this hymn. It's as you get closer to Jesus on a time frame basis, then the words become a little bit more real. And as a friend of mine said the other day, Father Time doesn't stop plodding along just because we want him to stop plodding along.
Right.
And so I think, and I hope, that we mature. As we mature, we actually sing the song in our heads the way it's written in the hymnal. And the thing that I would add to that then is, based on all the stuff that we've kind of talked about over the last couple of months, there's a word that y'all are familiar with that I kind of got stuck on a couple of weeks ago. And the word is SELAH. You know it from being in a psalm. And it kind of means pause or lift up God, or to weigh something, to balance. And there's a word that comes with it sometimes that I cannot pronounce. It's something like Higaion. It's Higgaon. And it means that sometimes goes with the word Selah right before it. And it means musical interlude. And so when you see that, and you see either Higaion and Selah, or you just see Selah, it's kind of like somebody saying, well, we've sung a verse of the hymn, like the one I just quoted. Now the organ's going to play before we sing the next verse. why don't you think about what you just said or what you just sang? Why don't you think about those words just a little bit before we move on? And so if you look at Psalm 37:7, I got to find 37.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, just do the first half of that verse, Mike.
Okay. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him.
And if you think about it, Selah is the sort of one word response for, well, kind of sit there and think about it. Wait patiently for him. In Psalm 67, where's 67?
You want me to read it?
If you can find it, that's fine. Psalm 67:1.
Go for it, Mike.
God be merciful unto us and bless us and cause his face to shine upon us. Selah.
So think about it. This phrase is the same phrase out of Numbers 6, where we do the priestly blessing, which is the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. This is the same basic phrase in Psalm 67, where it says, for the choir director with stringed instruments, a song. And then it said, it basically is beseeching God to be gracious to us, bless us, make your face shine upon us. And then it's Selah. Think about that. Is that really what we want? And I think the other word that comes in here, and it's in the Psalm 31:7 one, where it talks about being still. It really is be still, or keep silent, or relax, or have rest, or to be motionless. That's kind of all in that be still kind of Hebrew word. And so if we're supposed to be sort of, when we read through the Bible, quite often I've got 10 verses to read, so I read 10 verses. I'm an engineer. Take it off. All done. For me, what happens is I wake up with one of these stuck in my head, sort of like that song. And then I'm outside doing something. There aren't a lot of people around. And aside from the noise of the chainsaw or something else, it's going around and around. And I'm like, okay, what's in there that I'm missing? What's in there that I haven't thought of? What's in there that might make the scripture a little bit richer? In Vince's funeral, as I was summing up, I said, all right, how do I sum up Vince? How do I sum him up? And I was like, well, you've got the Boy Scout law. Boy Scouts trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, reverent. I said, that's a fairly good summary of Vince. I said, but it doesn't feel deep enough. And then what I couldn't see was the pastor and half the preachers from the church were sitting behind me on the altar. And I could not see them, but Mary Kay could. Because my next line was, it doesn't feel quite deep enough. So I went looking, and I found a set of attributes in Galatians 5. You all know what's in Galatians 5. It's the fruit of the Spirit. But when I said that, Mary Kay said that all of the pastors behind me went, because they obviously know where I was headed. And I went through the fruits of the Spirit and talked about Vince. And did any of these apply to Vince? Love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, temperance, faith. And of course it did. They did. But part of what God does with Selah, is part of what he does with Be Still and Wait, is think about it and be quiet enough that you can prayerfully discern what God's trying to tell you. And so what I'm trying to say is think about the stuff that we've talked about over the last 6 months or so, and think about it. Because somebody sent me a clip today that basically said, it's awfully hard to hear God when you've asked him a question and you have a preferred answer.
Mhm.
Right? God, can I buy a new car? Oh, by the way, the answer is yes.
I already picked it out.
I already got it picked out. I'm just
Know the
waiting for you
color.
to tell me yes. Right? And yet, what psalmist says is, well, think about it. And what he says in 37 is, yeah, be still, be motionless, relax, keep silent, and listen for God. And so that my encouragement to you is think about all the stuff that we've talked about over the last year or so. And think about it. And see if there's anything in there that as you're reading, as you're thinking, as you're meditating, God doesn't bring something up, sort of like the silly song for me, and say, you sing this differently now that you're 70 than you did when you were 20. And I had to admit, like, yeah, and it's a whole lot more poignant at 70 than it was at 20. And I didn't have any of those things. So why would I say I don't want any of them? And I think if we're willing to be quiet, if we're willing to think about it, if we're willing to take some time, and we don't have, we may have an answer in the back of our head, but we're willing to have our mind changed. We're willing to have the Lord actually talk to us, then we can actually come out better in the long. So, Selah, guys, Selah.
Lub lub. Yeah. Do you want me to stop recording before we
Yeah,
start
go for it.
responding?
Sure.